How to set boundaries without feeling mean. Have you ever found yourself saying yes when you really wanted to say no? It's a situation many of us have been in, especially as we get older. We want to be kind, helpful, and supportive, but sometimes saying yes all the time leaves us feeling drained, overwhelmed, and a little resentful. If you've ever felt like you're sacrificing your own well-being just to avoid upsetting someone else, then this video is for you. In today's conversation, we're going to talk about setting boundaries without feeling guilty or mean. It's a topic that's especially important as we get older. After all, our time, energy, and emotions are precious, and we deserve to protect them. But how do we do that without feeling like we're letting people down? How do we say no without feeling bad about it? This is a challenge that many people face, regardless of age, but it's something that becomes even more relevant as we get older. As we enter the later stages of life, we often feel a deep sense of responsibility to others, whether it's our children, grandchildren, friends, or even neighbors. And sometimes, that sense of responsibility can make us forget about our own needs. But here's the thing, setting boundaries is not about being mean. It's about honoring your own needs and taking care of yourself, so that you can be there for others in a healthier, more sustainable way. Today, we're going to explore how to set those boundaries in a way that feels good, both for you and for the people you care about. So, let's dive in. The first step in setting boundaries without feeling mean is understanding why boundaries are important. Boundaries aren't walls that shut people out, they're the guidelines that help us maintain balance in our lives. Think of them as the invisible lines that define where you end and someone else begins. They protect your time, energy, and emotional well-being. For example, let's say your friend calls you every morning for a chat, but it's starting to feel like a daily obligation. You love your friend, but you don't have the time or energy to chat every single day. So, what do? You could start by saying, "I'd love to chat, but I'm only available on Tuesdays and Thursdays." This is a simple boundary, but it's one that lets your friend know that while you care, you also need your space. And guess what? It doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you someone who knows how to prioritize their own well-being. Now, I know that saying no or setting limits can feel difficult, especially when you're afraid of disappointing someone. But here's the second point to keep in mind, you're not responsible for other people's feelings. I know that might sound harsh, but it's true. People are responsible for how they react to your boundaries. If someone is upset because you've set a boundary, that's their responsibility to work through, not yours. Think about it this way, if you're always saying yes to things you don't want to do, you're teaching people that your time and energy are unlimited. And that's simply not true. By saying no when you need to, you're helping others understand that your time is valuable and that they need to respect your space. One of the biggest fears we have when setting boundaries is the fear of being labeled as selfish or mean. But let me reassure you, self-care is not selfish. It's a necessary part of living a healthy, happy life. When you set boundaries, you're not only protecting your own well-being, but you're also modeling healthy behavior for others. You're teaching your friends, family, and loved ones that it's okay to take care of yourself, too. Let's take another example. Imagine you've been invited to a family gathering, but you're just not feeling up to it. You've had a busy week, and you need some time to recharge. Instead of going and pushing yourself past your limits, you could say something like, "I'd love to see everyone, but I'm feeling a bit tired and need some time to myself. I'll join you next time." It's a simple boundary that's respectful to both you and your family, and it doesn't make you mean or uncaring. In fact, it shows that you understand the importance of self-care. Now, I want you to think about this. How often do you say yes to things because you're afraid of disappointing others, even when you know it's not what you truly want? It's easy to fall into that pattern, but the more you practice setting boundaries, the easier it becomes. And the best part? You'll start to feel a sense of relief when you're able to say no without feeling guilty. In the next part of this video, we'll talk about how to get comfortable with the no word, how to handle the guilt that can come with it, and how to create boundaries that are firm, yet compassionate. But for now, take a moment to reflect on the first steps you can take towards setting healthier boundaries in your life. Remember, setting boundaries is about taking care of yourself, and that's something you absolutely deserve. So don't be afraid to practice saying no, because when you do, you're creating space for the things that truly matter. Stay tuned for the next part, where we'll continue this conversation and explore even more ways to set boundaries with confidence and kindness. Now that we've discussed why boundaries are important and how they're not about being mean, let's dive deeper into the next step, getting comfortable with saying no. It's a skill that, like any other, takes practice. But the good news is, the more you do it, the easier it gets. If you've spent a lifetime saying yes to everything, it can feel strange and even uncomfortable to start saying no. But here's something I want you to remember: your needs matter. You deserve to prioritize your well-being just as much as anyone else. It's not selfish, it's necessary. You wouldn't expect your car to keep running without ever needing fuel, right? Well, your body and mind need rest and time for rejuvenation too. And that means saying no sometimes. So, how do you get comfortable with saying no without feeling guilty? The first thing to understand is that it's okay to start small. You don't have to turn down every request that comes your way right away. Instead, begin by practicing in low-stakes situations where you feel comfortable. For example, if a friend asks you to meet for coffee, and you're just not up for it, it's okay to say, "I'd love to, but I need some time to myself today." It doesn't have to be a big deal. No one will think less of you. And if they do, that's their issue, not yours. Over time, you'll find that these small no's will build your confidence, and before you know it, you'll feel more empowered to set boundaries in more significant situations. Now, let's talk about something that often holds us back from setting boundaries: the fear of disappointing others. This fear can be especially strong if you're someone who's always been there for others, always the one people turn to. But here's the truth: you're not responsible for other people's expectations. People may have their own desires and needs, but it's not up to you to meet them all. It's important to remember that your value isn't tied to how much you give to others. One powerful thing to keep in mind is that setting boundaries actually helps improve relationships. When you set healthy limits, you're teaching others how to respect you and your needs. Think of it this way: if you constantly say yes to everyone, you might start feeling resentful, and that resentment can seep into your relationships. But when you say no when you need to, you're coming from a place of honesty. You're respecting both your time and your relationships, and that will lead to more fulfilling and genuine connections. Here's a good example. Let's say your children ask you to watch your grandchildren for the weekend. You love your grandkids, but you've been feeling exhausted lately and need some time to recharge. Instead of feeling obligated to say yes, try something like, "I'd love to spend time with them, but I'm feeling a bit run down. How about we plan a visit next weekend instead?" You're still expressing your love and desire to be involved, but you're also setting a boundary that takes your needs into account. The next tip I have for you is to be clear and firm, but kind. It's important that when you say no, you don't over-explain yourself or apologize excessively. Over-apologizing can make you seem unsure about your decision, and that can invite pressure from others to change your mind. A simple, straightforward response is all you need. For example, "I can't commit to that right now," or "that doesn't work for me at the moment," is polite, but firm. And remember, you don't owe anyone an explanation. You don't need to justify why you need rest or time for yourself. Just as you wouldn't expect someone to justify their need for personal space, it's important that you honor your own. So, if you're feeling the urge to over-explain or apologize, take a deep breath and remind yourself that your well-being comes first. Let's talk about something that can be difficult for many people: feeling guilty when you say no. Guilt is a natural emotion, especially when we feel like we're letting someone down. But here's something important to understand: guilt doesn't have to dictate your actions. When you feel guilty for setting a boundary, pause and reflect on why you're feeling that way. Are you guilty because you're letting someone down, or are you guilty because you've been taught that you should always put others before yourself? It's helpful to reframe the way you think about guilt. Instead of thinking about it as a sign that you're doing something wrong, try to think of it as a signal that you're making a choice that's best for your health, happiness, and peace of mind. It's not easy, but over time, you will start to feel less guilty and more empowered by your ability to make decisions that honor your own needs. Now that we've discussed some practical ways to say no without feeling guilty, it's time to focus on the importance of being consistent. Setting boundaries isn't a one-time thing, it's an ongoing practice. Once you start setting boundaries, people will begin to respect them, but only if you remain consistent. If you set a boundary one day and then let it slide the next, you'll confuse others and undermine your own sense of self-respect. For example, if you've told a family member that you can't take on extra tasks right now, stick to it. If they ask again, remind them of your boundary. The more consistent you are, the more others will understand that you're serious about taking care of yourself. As we move into the final part of this video, we'll discuss how to deal with the emotional responses you might encounter from others and how to make setting boundaries a natural, ongoing part of your life. We'll also touch on the importance of reinforcing your boundaries in a positive, constructive way. Stay tuned for the next part, where we'll dive deeper into maintaining boundaries and creating a life that supports your well-being. Now that we've explored how to set boundaries and how to get comfortable with saying no, let's focus on reinforcing those boundaries and embracing the lifestyle of self-care that comes with them. Setting boundaries is a journey, one that not only enhances your well-being but also ensures that you're living a life that honors your needs, desires, and emotional health. And here's the great news, it gets easier with time. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes to protect your time and energy, and to encourage others to do the same. You see, boundaries aren't just about saying no. They're about creating a space where you can thrive physically, mentally, and emotionally. It's about giving yourself permission to prioritize your well-being without feeling like you're being selfish. It's essential to understand that when you take care of yourself, you're actually in a better position to take care of others. If you're constantly running on empty, how can you be there for those who depend on you? But as you start setting boundaries, you might notice something, others may not always be happy about it. That's the tricky part. While you're learning to protect yourself, some people might feel hurt, rejected, or even confused by your new limits. It's important to know that these emotional reactions are part of the process, and they don't necessarily mean you've done something wrong. In fact, it's usually a sign that you've started to establish a healthy boundary that's necessary for both your growth and theirs. If someone reacts negatively, try to stay grounded in your decision. Acknowledge their feelings but don't let them sway you. For example, if a friend says, "Why don't you ever make time for me anymore?" you can say, "I understand you're feeling disappointed, but I'm making sure I take care of my own needs right now. I'll be happy to plan something when I'm able." This kind of response is kind but firm, allowing you to uphold your boundaries without being dragged into a debate or feeling guilty. As you continue setting and reinforcing your boundaries, remember that consistency is key. Be firm, but also gentle. It's okay to repeat yourself. If a family member keeps asking for more than you can give, it's important to consistently reinforce your limits. You don't need to be rude, but you do need to be clear. Over time, people will begin to respect your boundaries, and you'll find that they understand you better. One thing that often comes up when reinforcing boundaries is the fear of being perceived as distant or uncaring. This is a common fear, especially for those of us who have spent years being the go-to person in our families or social circles. But it's vital to remember that setting boundaries doesn't mean you're withdrawing from relationships. In fact, it's the opposite. By setting healthy boundaries, you're actually showing up for others in a more meaningful and sustainable way. Think about it. When you're constantly overextending yourself and neglecting your own needs, you may become resentful or even burnt out. This can make you less present with others, less engaged, and less able to give the love and care that you truly want to offer. But when you set boundaries, you create space for more meaningful, quality interactions. Your relationships become healthier because both you and your loved ones are respecting each other's time, energy, and emotional space. Let's not forget that boundaries also involve saying yes to yourself. This can be just as important as saying no to others. After all, boundaries aren't just about protecting yourself from others, they're about making space for the things that truly bring you joy and fulfillment. Whether it's spending time on a hobby, taking a walk in nature, or simply sitting in silence with a cup of tea, saying yes to yourself is an essential part of the process. For example, if you've been feeling the urge to take up painting or read a book that's been sitting on your shelf for months, allow yourself to do that. Saying yes to your passions, no matter how big or small, is an act of self-respect. It's a way of honoring your needs and nourishing your soul. And when you make time for these things, you'll feel more energized, more inspired, and more connected to the world around you. As we come to the end of this video, let's take a moment to reflect on everything we've discussed. Remember, setting boundaries is a form of self-care, and self-care is not selfish. In fact, it's one of the best ways to ensure that you can continue being there for others in a way that feels authentic and sustainable. By practicing healthy boundaries, you're not just protecting your own well-being, you're also teaching others how to respect you and your needs. And that's a beautiful thing. I know it can be challenging at first, but I want you to remember that you are worthy of your time, energy, and love. You don't have to say yes to everything, and you don't have to feel guilty for saying no. Over time, you'll feel more confident, more empowered, and more at peace with your choices. So, I encourage you to take what you've learned today and begin setting boundaries that will support your well-being. Start small, stay consistent, and remember, you are worth it. Let go of the guilt, embrace self-care, and live a life that honors your needs. If you found this video helpful, I'd love for you to share your thoughts in the comments below. What's one boundary you've set recently that's helped you feel more balanced? I'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on more content that helps you live your best life at any age. Here's to living with purpose, peace, and boundaries that serve you. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.